Roberto Martin. I didn't know your name after Roberto Martin, Martin Andar, Revered Justice, and of course, Yusek Christian Ablan. Good morning. Are you there, Chris?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning po.
Good morning, and Yusek Lorraine Madoy. My gosh, all of you are children of my friends. Lorraine, your father was a good friend of mine in Concon. And Yusek George Apasible for operations and good governance. Yusek Marvin Gatpayat. Yusek, are you all there as I mentioned your names? Please raise your hand.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
You are Yusek Gatpayat?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. George Apasible, you're there?
Mr. Chair.
Can you raise your hand, please? Again, I'd like to be referred to as Mr. Chairman. I don't have a wooden heart. All right. And then Fiducia Mia Reyes Lucas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
You are the Secretary for Media Accreditation and Relations Office. Yusek Raquel Tobias. Yusek Raquel Tobias. Or shall I say Tobias? Oh, you're not there. Okay, it's not there. Yusek Joel Edgo. Joel, are you there? Nope. Asek Huzan Arsena. Please sound off if your name is called Arsena. Lawrence Garcia. Asek Lawrence Garcia. Asek Florentino Loyola Jr. Asek Omar Alexander Romero. Attorney Romero, are you there? Asek Ryan Vincent Uy. Director Tristan de Guzman for Administration and Finance. Director Glenn Ocampo. Director Eugene Early, Operations. Director Vinci Beltran, Special Projects. It would be appreciated if you say, I'm here, sir. Miss Beltran, can you please sound off?
Here, sir, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. I said, Mr. Chairman.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Erin Maria Perez.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Where are you?
Here, Mr. Chairman.
You are Secretary for what is your role, Attorney Erin? Special Projects?
I'm a staff of Director Vinci Beltran under Special Projects, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And Apo Production Unit Chairperson Michael Dalumpines. Michael Dalumpines.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Where are you? Can you raise your hand?
Here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Miss Lady Ann Lorzano, sino sabi to yung secretary? Is the COMSEC here?
Yes,
Andre
Mr.
Mortel?
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, yes.
Well, why don't you do the roll call? I'm doing the roll call because you're not even saying anything.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'm now at Bureau of Broadcast Services. Before that, Miss Lady Ann Lorzano. Are you there? Lorzano?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am here.
Would you mind taking your mask off so I can remember your faces? Okay. What is your job there?
I am the Executive Assistant of Chairman and President Michael Dalumpines.
Director. Go ahead, Mr. Andre Mortel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ganda pa naman ng Amerikano mo, hindi ka nagsasalita. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So, from
Bureau of
the
Broadcast.
yes, sir. From the Bureau of Broadcast Services, Director Rizal Giovanni Aportadera Jr.
Present. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Where are you?
Right here,
Can you
Mr.
raise
Chairman.
your hand? All right, okay.
Also from the same bureau, sir, Ms. Rachel Gatpandan. Ms. Rachel Gatpandan.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Goodness.
For the Bureau of Communication
What is your job
Services,
there, Ms. Gatpandan? I mean, I'm giving you 2 minutes of or 1 minute of fame. What is your job there? Ms. Gatpandan.
I'm the acting chief. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm the acting chief of the Finance Division of the Bureau of Broadcast Services.
Acting Chief.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What do you act? Chief of what?
Chief of the Finance Division. Finance Division, Mr. Chairman.
Do you mind putting yourself on video? Ms. Gatpandan, can you turn on your video, please, so I can see you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Because you're wasting our time.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Do you mind taking off your mask?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Okay. Next.
from the Bureau of Communication Services, Director Maria Florinda Princess Duque.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Also from the same department, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Miley.
Secretary Duque, Princess?
Yes,
Are you
Mr.
related to Secretary Duque?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You are what?
Director 4. I'm the niece of the secretary.
You're the daughter of Gonzalo?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you.
Also from the same department, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Mylene Ranyosa. Kindly sound off, ma'am, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
And what do you do?
I'm the OIC for budget.
You're very important. Okay, go ahead.
From the same department, sorry.
Mr. Dato.
Morning, Mr. Chair. I'm the OIC.
My name is Chairman Gordon. Are you dense?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you are?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Senator Gordon. I'm the OIC of Finance and Admin Division.
Next, Attorney Belinda Nagy.
Shall I mark her absent, sir? Did you invite all these people or were they brought in by Secretary Andanar?
We invited them, Mr. Chairman.
On what basis? I'm just giving recognition to what you did. All right, now, hurry up. So, Ms. Nagy is not here? Belinda Nagy? She's a lawyer. Ms. Nagy, absent. I want the secretary, because you invited them, to write them a letter asking them why they should, to explain why they're absent. All right? Sinasayang mo oras eh. Inimbita mo tapos hindi dadating. Hindi binabawasan mo yung respeto sa Senado. Go ahead.
For the Intercontinental Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hexel Don Alvarez.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Right here.
From the National Printing Office, sir, It's Director Francisco V. Valles Jr. Director Valles Jr., please.
He's absent. Huh?
Mr. Chairman, he's here.
Is it so hard for you to say present?
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Rino Jeronimo Sagaral.
Present. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney Rino Geronimo J. Sagaral, the Legal Officer of the National Printing Office.
Good morning.
From the News and Information Bureau, Director Virginia Arcilia Agtay.
Webex ba yan? Webex.
Mr. Chairman, Director Agtay is having some problems with her internet. From the PTV, People's Television Network, GM Catherine Chloe De Castro.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Attorney Raymond Sanchez.
Good morning, President, Mr. Chairman.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
You're not there. Your video is off.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're a lawyer, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Well, show yourself. All of you show yourself, so I know that you're not ghost employees. Turn on your videos. I'm trying to respect you people from showing up. I want to see your faces, and you're trying to hide your faces. Attorney Jason Salendar, go ahead. Dami yung lawyer, ah.
Attorney Jason Salendar.
Po, Mr. Chairman, I'm here po.
Where are you?
I'm the OIC for legal po, Mr. Chairman.
Sa PTV?
Yes po. Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
From Philippine Information Agency, Director General Ramon Coaloping.
Present. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Can you raise your hand so I can see you, please? There you go. Okay.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
From the Radio Television Malacanang, Executive Director Dennis Wilfred Pabalan.
Present, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
With him is Miss Lerina Braga.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Lerina Braga from RTPM.
May I see your face, please, Miss Braga? Okay, all right. Go ahead.
That is all, Mr. Chairman.
So Solis is not here. Please do not write anything here without them showing up. Where is DDG Benjamin Felipe? Of PIA. Do not waste their time. Do not waste the time of the government by inviting them and they don't show up.
Init ng ulo.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is our budget hearing for PCOO. You have a total of 1,479 personnel that are listed as COS personnel. I leave the floor to I recognize Senator Dillon because he was the one cross-examining people, or rather asking questions last time. Senator Dillon, please.
I see the presence of the Senate President. I yield the floor to the Senate President if he has questions out of deference to his office.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I lost him on the video. Yes. Thank you, Senate President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Minority Leader, Senator Dillon. Good morning to everyone. Thank you also again to our chairman, Senator Richard Gordon, who is chairman of the Blue Ribbon, for taking another or making a chance or giving a chance for us to have another hearing for the PCOO budget. I understand you already took it up before, but there are certain issues that I would like to take up. So with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, may I address it to the officials of the PCOO.
You have the floor, sir.
Based on the briefing materials that was prepared by the LBRMO, or the Legislative Budget Research and Monitoring Office of the Senate, the Philippine Communications Operations Office, including its attached agencies, has a proposed budget of 2,089,000,000 for 2022. May I know how much of this will be allocated for the entire workforce, regardless of the status of employment? Personal services, I understand, has 42% of the total budget. So this is excluding staff who are contractuals or under contract. So may I know how much of the 2 billion is allotted for the entire workforce? Who can answer for that?
Mr. Chairman, may I defer to Undersecretary Chris Ablan, who is our Undersecretary for Finance and Administration.
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Senate President. We have a total of 874 million 95,000 allocated for all agencies of the PCOO, including the PCO proper, attached agencies, and GOCCs, Mr. Chair, based on our records. 874,095,000.
For the personnel services alone.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Based also on the materials of the LBRMO, out of the 3,536 authorized positions in PCOO and its attached agencies, only 1,973 positions have been filled up, leaving 45% or 1,563 of your plantilla items unfilled. And then currently, you employ 1,536 non-permanent personnel, a number almost the same as the unfilled permanent positions. Can you explain to me why this is being done by the PCOO? Why instead of filling up the vacancies, you hire numerous personnel under the COS or Contract of Service Agreement?
Mr. Chair, may I respond to the Senate President?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we confirm po that we have a total plantilla position of 3,940. We have filled 2,158 of these, and we have unfilled of 1,782, or the Senate President is correct, 45% that are not filled. We assure the Senate that the PCO proper and the rest of its attached agencies and GOCCs are doing their best to fill in the plantilla positions. For PCO proper, Mr. Chairman, we have an unfilled plantilla of 88. We aim to reduce that number of 88 to 35 by 2022 by opening up the items. And currently, Mr. Chair, we are actively hiring, and we anticipate that many of our contract of service in the admin and finance offices will be absorbed by these new items. We have requested for items from the DBM for our accounting division, our budget division, our legal division, and our IT division, Mr. Chair. And we aim to reduce that number to 35. We've also requested for a scrap and build. We have around 17 positions, Mr. Chair, in the 88 that are very low salary grades, and we've already proposed to the DBM to scrap them so that we can provide a better salary structure. Earlier, Mr. Chair, in July, we've also requested for a special CS examination from the Civil Service Commission. We've noticed that many of our contract of service, Mr. Chair, are not CS eligible, and in order for them to qualify for the positions available, we have made a special exam with the civil service, and we anticipate the results anytime soon, and hopefully we can absorb many of this COS. For the other agencies, Mr. Chairman, they have their reasons. For example, for PTV, they also have a high unfilled percentage rate, Mr. Chairman, and they have a table of organization pending with the Civil Service Commission. It has not been approved, and therefore they cannot hire the items that they still have. With the indulgence of the chairman and the Senate President, I defer to the heads of agencies of the attached agencies and GOCCs to explain the unfilled plantilla positions. But insofar as the PCO proper is concerned, Mr. Chair, we are filling them up as we speak.
Mr. President, you're on mute, sir.
But when you say that some of the personnel don't have the needed CSC eligibility, then why don't you look for those who are eligible? Well, anyway, your explanation does not completely answer my question of why the same number of permanent personnel and the filling up of the vacancies is almost the same number. And now, okay, let me go to you were saying that we should are you giving a chance to the other agencies to explain? Let me focus now first on the People's Television Network Incorporated, because they have the most number of personnel under the contract of service agreement among all the attached offices, agencies in the PCOO, right? All right. Now, in fact, these contract of service personnel are way more than double of the PTNI's permanent employees. You currently have 578 COS and 11 contractual employees, totaling to 589 non-permanent personnel, while you have 234 filled permanent positions. I want to get an answer directly from the People's Television Network or PTNI's General Manager and COO, Catherine De Castro, on why this has been being practiced in the agency. And the explanation, well, okay, let's hear it first before anything else. Go ahead, Ms. De Castro.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Senate President. Just to go back po to the table po, just to correct it lang po, we have 146 permanent employees, 6 contractual employees, and 534 COS. To be honest po, medyo naging masalimuot po talaga ang history ng PTV in terms of its plantilla positions. It goes way back in 2001. When PTV last opened its OSSP, or the organizational structure and staffing pattern. The 2001 table of organization had 766 plantilla positions, and at that time, 2001, PTV only had 478 employees. Then, Mr. Chairman, in 2004, the Office of the President, through EO 366, or the Rationalization Plan, ordered a strategic review of the operations and organizations of the executive branch to improve public service delivery. PTV then applied for the rationalization plan under EO 366 in 2004 and began reviewing its OSSP with only 766 plantilla positions. It is during this time that PTV was prevented from hiring and promoting employees and thus could not fill up the plantilla positions of the TO of 2001. It took 3 years for PTV to complete its study, but in 2008, the PTV management at that time decided to scrap the rationalization plan. Then, Senate President, under the Aquino administration, the revitalization of the network was pushed under Republic Act 10390, and it also ordered for the reorganization of the network. The reorganization plan was submitted to the Governance Commission for GOCCs, or GCG, and it was approved in 2015. But because of the change of administration from the Aquino to President Duterte, only the first phase out of 4 phases was implemented. GCG approved the table of organization and it only had 498 plantilla positions. With all due respect, sirs, a quick review of the GCG approved TO showed some problems. That's why all the general managers before me and even yours truly wanted to revise and to make it more suitable for a broadcasting network. If I may say so, some of the problems of the GCG approved TO, the staffing pattern reveals that it is skeletal by nature. Most divisions had only one permanent plantilla position. The GCGTO was created with the view that the rest of the personnel will be under a COS agreement. This will no longer be feasible as it will violate CSC DBM COA Joint Memorandum Circular 2018. The plantilla positions under the GCG approved TO did not have individual job descriptions. Hindi ko po alam kung bakit ito nakalusot po sa GCG. The qualification standards or QS for the positions were revised but were never submitted to the Civil Service Commission. And in fact, CSC even asked for justification as to the GCGTO's high QS. This is where the gridlock happens, sirs. GCG approved a COS-dependent table of organization, but CSC does not recognize its QS standards. All positions in the TO must have their QS approved by the CSC. In short, the qualification standards for the GCGTO was created without the Civil Service Commission approval. The GCGTO was based on analog operations, so that's another problem. As PTV now is in the process of implementing digital operations, the network now requires an IT-intensive personnel, which the GCGTO did not have. In short, the GCGTO lacked in foresight despite it being approved only in 2015. Another problem, sirs, is it is highly likely that the group who created the GCGTO back in 2015 was not familiar with the broadcasting industry. The GCGTO had positions for senior news editors for general news and some other positions which PTV does not have, or which PTV does not need. It also had an executive producer, a senior reporter, and field producer for presidential coverage, which the RTVM already does. And lastly, the GCGTO only allows 3 reportorial teams. No network can produce news 24/7 with only 3 news teams. It also only has 3 writers for the entire news division. The GCG failed to recognize that a newscast needs at least 3 writers. To date, PTV has 6 daily shows that rely heavily on news. Another thing, the GCGTO only had 2 editors for the entire news division. The GCGTO did not provide any position for cameramen who will service the ENG. And lastly, the most important thing, the GCGTO also failed to allot positions for online news. And isa pa po sa pinapoint out, the GCGTO did not undergo any dialogue with the networks union or the PTEA. It lacked communication with the proper transparency. Kapag tinuloy po ang implementation noon ng GCGTO, only 89 of our permanent employees will be qualified, displacing the 57 employees. With that problem, sir, kami po ngayon sa PTV ay nag-decide na mag-propose ng bagong table of organization which the network can use for the next 10 years. The new proposed TO will have more or less 800 plantilla positions, which will definitely absorb all our COS. PTV management has dialogues with the union, and we've already asked Development Academy of the Philippines to help us create an intact TO. By February po of 2022, and with all necessary approvals from the PTNI board, the GCG and the CSC, we will be able to implement the better TO by then. Thank you po, sir.
Mr. Castro, how long have you been with the PTV for, or PTNI?
Senate President, I only got appointed to the position last May 2020 po. So roughly more than a year na po.
So this information that you have given us just came to your attention recently?
Sir,
Because
sir,
my problem is that the explanation of Director Ablan, and your explanation. Yes, very good. But you only plan to do that after 5 years? You have been in power since 5 years ago eh. Ngayon naisipang gawin lahat yan. Why not during that time? But anyway, so you were just appointed recently. May I know how long, or on average, these contract of service personnel have been working for PCOO, including the PTNI?
Mr. Chair, may I respond to the Senate President for PCO proper?
Go ahead.
I can
Go ahead.
respond. Yes, Mr. Chair, we have contracts of service as long as hired in 1997, Mr. Chair. We would like to inform the committee that many of those who were hired in the 90s and the early 2000s have recently been absorbed by the PCO, Mr. Chair. We have absorbed our drivers and our clerks, our aircon technicians and electricians who have been contracts of service for 10 to 20 years, Mr. Chair. The reason behind this is the items were not opened in previous years. The reason why they weren't open in the early 2000s, Mr. Chair, is because of the reorganization order of then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. In the previous administration, Mr. Chair, the items were available, but they were not open because of that pending reorganization. It is only under Secretary Andanar that he authorized the opening of the items, and we have since opened all of these items, Mr. Chair, and we are currently hiring them, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman.
You're saying some even of this COS personnel have been in the agency for more than decades, and recently, also there it came to my attention that a former host named Jules Gia have been a contractual employee for 8 years, and based on the statement published, PTNI's COS personnel o contract of service personnel. Ang sinasabi ng CSC or Civil Service Commission rules on contracts of service, ang sinasabi ron pwede kayong kumuha nun or technical expert, learning a specific service provider or technical expert to undertake special project or job within a specific period. Ay, sabihin mula 1998, yung iba, specific period pa rin yung project nila. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa natatapos. Yung katulad nung kay Jules, hindi pa rin natatapos yung project. 8 years na. What are the specific functions of the COS personnel? O ginagamit niyo yung mga CS personnel for other work other than what the CSC provides as a rule?
Mr. Chair, insofar as the PCO proper is concerned, we follow po joint circular number 2 of the DBM and the COA, and we hire them based on their technical expertise, and because the PCO regular personnel are not able to address the concerns. Insofar as Mr. Giyang is concerned, I defer po to GM Cat de Castro po.
Teka muna. Kasi ang sinasabi ng Civil Service Commission, ang description nila dapat ng COS workers should not be made to perform duties, functions of existing regular employees. They cannot be designated to positions tasked to control or supervise regular or career employees. Ba't ginagawa nyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair, to give you an example, we have an accounting division. Our accounting division only has 2 staff contract of service, 2 staff regular. we've actually requested from the DBM, and the DBM just recently gave us 5 items for our accounting. So at that time, Mr. Chair, there really was a lack of manpower to provide the accounting concerns and issues of the agency. But we're very happy that the DBM approved our request, and now our accounting will be made mostly of regular plantilla more rather than a contract of service, Mr. Chairman.
All right. In relation to your personnel issues or COS personnel issues, the Commission on Audit, the COA, the favorite of the President, has previously questioned the legality, validity, and accuracy of 189,782,000 worth of salaries received by the personnel of the PTNI. This was due to the fact, kasi sinasabi ng COA, that some daily time records or the DTRs of the COS personnel lack signature of personnel and the non-approval of their respective supervisors. So, have you resolved this, Mr. Castro?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Senate President, yes po, we have resolved this. Nakulangan lang po sa mga signatures, inayos na po namin to. It was already submitted po to the COA, and then we also submitted all these daily time records as requested po by Senator Nancy Binay. It's already po with the Philippine Senate. Yun po. Thank you po.
Kung hindi na po na ng COA, wala. Di mapapagbintangan kayo may mga ghost employees kayo.
With all due respect for Mr. Chairman, it was the same AUM from the previous years po. So ngayon lang po nakapag-comply talaga ang PTV sa submissions po ng daily time records po. At yung mga salaries po ay napunta po sa mga tao po ng PTV.
All right. Is it true that Mr. Jules Giyang was removed from his post because of his being vocal about press freedom? You know, the situation is ironic because the government's mainstream media, you are the mainstream media of the government. How will the people trust your station to report balanced and factual news if this is happening in your own backyard? Press freedom is something I truly value. I have to place that on record. My grandfather, the Maverick Senator Vicente Soto, is the author of the Press Freedom Law. And that's why I am concerned. And I am now the principal author of the law amending and expanding the coverage na sinama na kayo. Dati hindi kayo kasama sa Press Freedom Law. It's only the newspapers. Sinama namin kayo dito sa bago. So pero bakit ganun yung nakarating sa amin na informasyon na yun? Tinanggal ninyo because he was vocal about press freedom.
Yes po, Senate President. Just for the record po, si Jules Giyang po ay nag-resign po siya. But on the other hand, I have to admit that PTV has long been struggling with its image in terms of being the propaganda arm of the government. That said po, isa po sa mga isinusulong namin sa PTV po ay ang pag-implement po ng People's Broadcasting Corporation, wherein this one will be very independent in terms of editorial decisions. This is already in the House of Representatives. Nag-start na po kami mag-hearing dito. Kapag natupad po itong PBC, ang aming PTV po ay magiging parang BBC ng UK at Australian Broadcasting Corporation po. Ako rin po bilang anak ng dalawang broadcast icons po, isa rin po yan sa mga gusto ko talagang mangyari sa PTV. Magkaroon po talaga ng editorial independence and at the same time, alagaan din po syempre ang press freedom. Thank you po, sir.
Yes, even if they speak against the president, you are allowing them or you will allow them?
Sir, even the news items po, when we have something critical against the president, we also air it po on PTV. And every time that the president is about to say something against whoever, we try to practice fairness by making sure that we get the side of the other person involved po. Yun po, sir.
All right. Pasensya na kayo, medyo nagiging very crucial kasi yung role ninyo because of some information that have reached the Senate. That in the 2022 elections, I'm going to be very blunt about it. you're going to be used somehow, some way. So we're just trying to make sure that you have a clean slate para hindi kayo mapagbintangan, hindi ba? Kapagkat yun ang mga lumalabas na informasyon eh. Ngayon, kumpletuhin na natin. Another information that has come to my attention is one bill involving unliquidated funds of the PTNI. As a background there, during the field assignments ng mga news team ninyo, you are given out of town funds, given funds for out of town coverage. Once the coverage is done, the news team consisting of the cameraman, reporter, driver will return the remaining and unspent funds together with all the receipt of the expenses during the assignment. Now, the news department before does not have a proper liquidation form and turnover policies. Siguro binago nyo na, no? But thus, the news team will just give the unspent funds and receipts to a Shirley Constantino, a former news administrative staff who was also a COS personnel. However, in 2018, so recently lang, Ms. Constantino failed to return the cash to the network, resulting to memos being issued by the Finance Department to the members of the news teams. Ms. Constantino withheld the said memos. Since the news teams do not know about the memos and where the missing funds were, the members of the news team were the ones penalized by the agency by not paying their salaries. Kukunti na lang ang sweldo nito mga ito, sila pa napahamak, Some members of the news teams were deducted an amount ranging from 8,000 to 98,000. So after your alleged investigation, and I'm sure you're well aware of this already, your network sided with Ms. Constantino and allowed her to resign and leave the agency without any accountability. So it was the members of the news teams that were required to pay the unliquidated cash by Ms. Constantino. And these COS personnel were forced to pay or else their salaries will be put on hold. So may I know exactly the scope of the work of this Shirley Constantino? And based on the information that I gathered, she was also a COS personnel. Di ba dapat ang position niya should be performed by someone who is a permanent in the agency, Ms. Constantino? Ms. De Castro, go ahead.
Sir, with all due respect, I was not yet the general manager at that time, but my team here, they're telling me now that Cheryl Constantino was removed from office. He was a part of the news division. And yun po, despite of that, sir, we are now ayos na po ang aming mga liquidation process. And as GM po, Senate President, I will take a look at that. In fact, isa sa mga ginawa ko nung ako'y naupo, isabulin yung mga nagkaroon po ng problema with PTV. So, yun po, Senate President.
Pero dapat tinitigilan nyo na yung paggamit ng mga COS as katulad yan, designated administrative staff, officer of the news department, tapos COS lang. Hindi nyo pa sinusunod ng trabaho ng COS based on CSC rules. So is it true that she was exonerated? Hindi siya nakasuhan. She was just allowed to resign without her accountability for the unliquidated funds?
Yun, Senate President, my team here, they're telling me, tinanggal lang po talaga siya sa kanilang position. And
Hindi siya pinagbayad? Hindi siya pinagbayad? Ba't siningil pa rin yung mga pobreng mga empleyado na nag-turnover sa kanya ng mga pera?
Yes po, Senate President, we will take a note of that. I will make sure na we will resolve it and we will inform your office po as soon as possible. But as it is now, ang head na po ng news division is somebody na permanent na po kasi nga po nangyari po kay Constantino.
Okay. All right. Again, just to complete the picture, and I will take your word for that na hindi na dapat nangyayari yan. At saka tingnan nyo kung paano nyo hahabulin yun. Kawawa naman yung mga empleyado na pinagtatanggalan ng sweldo, hindi pinagsweldo, pinababayad yung kapalpakan ng isang COS na ginawa ninyong administrador. Okay. Now, also, mayroong konting hindi magandang nabalitaan tungkol sa PTV4. Ano? There is a news article last September 2, 2021. It says here that the PTV employees complained of demoralizing situation and that the People's Television Employees Association is requesting for the approval of complementary salary adjustment because 70% of the PTV's workforce have no salary increase for the last 15 years. So, may I know from the PCOO or you, Mr. Castro, if the request of Employees Association have been considered for the 2022 budget?
Yes, Senate President, may ilang grupo talaga ng mga empleyado na hindi naisama sa modified salary scheme noong 2017. Admittedly, 40% or roughly 68 employees lang ang nakatanggap, while 70 or 60% or roughly 102 employees did not receive any modified salary scheme. Through the years po, lagi pong nagpapadala ng appeal ang PTV sa Office of the President. Noong 2019, sumulat muli ang ating union sa Office of the President para humiling ng salary increase, pero sumagot ang Office of the President na base na rin sa mga komento ng GCG na decline po ang salary increase request po ng PTV. Pero dahil rin sa pandemya, marami po sa aking mga empleyado ang nagpapakasakali na baka ma-adjust pa rin ang kanilang mga sahod dahil ang PTV nga po ang media frontliners ng gobyerno. Our people put their lives at risk almost every day to cover the government's efforts versus COVID-19. Noong May 2021, sumulat po ang ating union muli sa Office of na aprubahan ng Pangulo ang Complementary Salary Adjustment or CSA. Ito po yung sinasabi ninyo, Senate President. Ang target sana po ng CSA ay increasean lamang ang mga hindi na isama sa salary adjustment noong 2017 o yung 70% ng mga regular employees ng network. Tayo rin sa management noong June pa lang po ng 2021 ay sumulat na rin sa OP para ipaalam na sinusuportahan natin ang hiling ng ating mga empleyado. Ang huling update po na nakuha namin sa Office of the President ay nire-review nila ang CPCS o yung Compensation Position Classification System na magbibigay solusyon na rin umano sa CSA request ng PTV. Kung ito po ay aprubahan o pipirmahan na ng ating mahal na Pangulo, Office of the President na lang po ang makakapag-sabi po noon. Para rin po matugunan ng unjust salary classification ng PTV, tayo po ay nagsasagawa ng table of reorganization, katulad po ng masabi ko kanina, para rin po mabigyan sila ng tamang salary para po sa kanilang mga posisyon. So katulad po namin sa... Yes po, sir. That's it.
Okay. Related to this demoralizing situation in the PTVNI, the People's Television Network, nakarating din sa amin ang balita na is it true that bullying is being practiced there by the officers? Ano? Now, in relation to that, is it true that one of your employees committed suicide? John Kenneth Bornilla? By jumping from his apartment building due to issues at work, kasama na yung bullying at saka yung mga sinasabi natin sa sweldo? This is based on his last conversation with his fellow employees. O mabigat yun. According to his co-employees, Mr. Bornilla was overworked, underpaid, and confronted with issues of mismanagement in the news department regarding work schedule, madalas mabubuli. Sino ba yung mga bully na yan? And so he decided to end his life. Oh, is it true that he committed suicide?
Sir, with all due respect to the family of Ken Bornilla, they actually asked me not to discuss more about what happened. But with regards to the bullying po, I would say na there are some issues saying na ganun na po yung nangyayari, not just with the reporters but also other people in the news division. What happened po is I had to change the OIC of the news division at that time at iba po ang nagpapalakad nito. In fact, every time that there is an issue with being overworked or may problema sa schedule, they can immediately get in touch with me para masolusyonan po natin ito kaagad.
All right, I hope Secretary Andanar will look into this. Ano? Di pa pwede yun. I hope the bullies have difficulty sleeping at night pag merong nagpakamatay dahil sa kanila. Ano? Anyway, I leave the other issues to my colleagues. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Those are serious statements made by no less than the Senate President of the Republic of the Philippines, Ms. De Castro. This representation is not going to sit idly by and let people that let injustice in the PCOO, particularly in the PTV network, happen that way. And we cannot just say out of respect for the family because sa tingin ko, the man who committed suicide owes justice. We owe justice to this man. Di ba? What do you think? Di ba? I run my people hard, but I mean, I am always sensitive to what they have, no, what they have in their hearts, no. So it's so important na malaman namin because baka talagin ako niya sa floor, hindi ko masagot, ha? Hindi ko may defend yung budget niya. Tsaka yung si Constantino, hindi ko kilala yan. Paano nagiging appointed yan na contractual? Pagkatapos aalis na lang tapos magbabayad yung mga pagkaraniwang mga empleyado na hirap rin. Hindi ako papayag diyan. Hindi ko i-sponsor itong budget nyo kung walang proper explanation yan. I don't think I will sponsor it, quite frankly. I'm shocked. I mean, I'm glad that the Senate President himself took the cudgels for these people. See, I know that he has a big heart, having come from the television industry, the entertainment industry, which has been very good to him and to our country. Dapat kayo rin. How can you have an independent PTV? Maganda yung sinasabi niyo, parang BBC. Kung ngayon pa lang, hindi niyo pinoproteksyonan yung mga tao niyo. Can I have an answer for that, please?
Mr. Chairman, admittedly, PTV for the longest time has had a lot of problems in terms of.
Excuse that. I know you very well.
I know po, Mr. Chairman.
Just because it happened before doesn't mean it's going to happen now. And you are the one on deck right now.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Hold the bull by the horns.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. That is why I am always in dialogue po with our people. When the thing with the Ken Bernilla po happened, I had to come up with a program wherein meron pong safe spaces po talaga. If there is a need to report anything.
If you remove the OIC, was he the guy bullying? Is she a person, a man or a woman?
She's a woman po.
She's a woman. All right. Have you conducted an investigation? That's very serious. A man dies, jumps out of the window.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman, we have already conducted an investigation po about it. And she had to be removed from office po talaga and transferred.
That is all? Was she also a contractual?
She's a permanent employee po.
Permanent employee. And she resigned or she was removed?
She resigned po as the OIC of News po.
And she's no longer in your office? She's no longer with the government?
She's still with the government po, but in another division na po.
Well, that's transferring the problem. Just like General De La Rosa, I saw him a while ago and I acknowledge his presence here. My good friend, Senator De La Rosa. Kung minsan nagiging ganyan sa military, sa police rather, more often, ililipat na lang yung problema sa ibang jurisdiction. So, nandiyan pa siya sa gobyerno.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Is he within PCOO? Is she within PCOO?
She is within PTV.
PTV?
Apo.
Well, you are the head and your immediate superior will be Secretary Martin Andanar, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Martin, can you please answer it? The question that I have, because it's very disconcerting. Secretary Andanar?
Mr. Chairman, I have given full range to GM Kat De Castro and the entire board of PTV. So the entire management of PTV is basically dependent on the general manager and the entire board of the People's Television Network. And I only I only come in when they ask for my advice.
I didn't get your answer. It was clear. Are you leaving it with the general manager as the board and the board?
Yeah, the entire management, Mr. Chairman of PTV, is with General Manager Kat De Castro and the entire PTV board, which includes the chairman. So I usually give the entire reign to my attached agencies, and I only step in once they ask me to.
Well, the budget, if it is approved, will have to be brought on the floor, and I would hate to have to answer it in a in a very unsure manner. I would like some definite answers. When I commit, I will commit all out, but I have to make sure that we protect the integrity of your department, and I'm sure you do that too. You've been raised very well by your parents, and I'm sure you're an upright man, capable of growth and greater service to your fellow men, quote unquote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So I would like to get something in writing. At the same time, in that Constantino case, uh, and the matter there was unliquidated advances. Is that correct? And I'd like to have justice for those people who have had to pay for them. Why are we going to let the poor people there? Sinasabi nyo, underpaid. Mga contractuals ba yung mga yan?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, most of our people from the news division are COS po.
I figured that. So COS na. I commend our Senate President for his compassion, because his compassion shines brightly here. Bakit natin pababayarin? Contractual services na nga yan. Sila pa magbabayad. Ito ba si Constantino, contractual rin?
COS po siya, Mr. Chairman.
And yet she was allowed to be an OIC. That sounds very unjust. Di po ba? Di ba? At Secretary Martin, I mean, do you know what San Martin de Porres is a patron saint of? Oops.
Of the Mr. Chairman, of the mulattoes in
The mulattoes, yeah.
South America.
And also the public health workers, if I'm not mistaken. And which means she cares for the health of the people because they need public health. So, yung health ng tao ninyo dyan, ano pag-alagaan nyo? Kung tumatalo nagsusuicide, masama yan. So I would like to get a written explanation before in case the budget is approved, because we have a big bar to explain here. I share the concerns of Senate President Soto, that baka gamitin ito mga contractual services, especially ang tatagal na niya. No? Ilan lang naman yung sinabi niya matagal, di ba? Undersecretary Blan, sabi niyo, maraming iba dyan, decades na. Ito, 4 years, 84 employees, 4 years. 3 years, 80 number of employees na since 2018 hanggang ngayon, CS. Tapos mayroon na naman tayong lalagyan ng 113. Ang totoo niyan, konting-konti lang naman yung mga tumagal na mga dekada. Ba't natin patatagalin? Pero yung konti na yun, halimbawa 9 years, 2012, 20. And then, tama ba yung sinasabi ko, Secretary Ablan? Can you bring down that one? Is this theirs or ours? Di ba itong pinakita niyo sa amin?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
PTV lang yan, PTV?
Opo.
O PTV lang yan, ha? Now, okay, I'll let you answer that in writing as well. Dapat matapos na yung problema yan. No? But I'm going to have ask you after Senator Dillon. I will ask questions more about the COS. But finally, just to follow up, again, all this is a matter of follow-up with the good questions of our Senate President. Again, I commend him for his compassion for the people. Again, I would like to ask Kat, in the interest of service, sinong pinalitan mo dyan as general manager?
Mr. Chairman, ang pinalitan ko po ay si Jeff Laksa po.
Jeff Laksa. And then how
Jeff
long
po.
did Jeff Laksa stay as general manager?
1 year? 1 year po. 1 year po.
And then who did Jeff Laksa prepare? You know, I'm a history and government major. I always look at history.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ang pinalitan po ni GM Jeff Laksa ay si Dino Apolonio po.
Dino Apollonia. God, how long did he last as a general manager?
From 2016 until 2018.
2 years. 2 years, would that be correct?
Yes, 2 years, sir. 2 years.
And then before Apollonia, how long did the other guy last?
Si Jet, I think po sir, after Apollonia left, nagkaroon po sila ng problema kung sino po yung gagawing GM. And I think it took a year almost bago po nagkaroon po ng bagong GM ang PTV. She was on board from 2019 to 2020 and I came in po 2020 po until now.
2019 to 2020.
Si GM Jet Laksa po.
Oo nga, pero yun nakaraan, before Apollonia.
Before Apollonia is Bocobo daw po, under the Aquino administration.
Ilang taon si Bocobo?
1 year lang din daw po, Mr. Chairman.
So I would imagine na panay ganyan, no? Sino pinakamagatagal na nalalaman yung GM? I'm addressing this to Secretary Martin because I think she should recommend na dapat talaga magabang serbisyo. In other words, yes. Do you see yourself as a career general manager of PTB4?
Honestly, Mr. Chairman, yes po.
Really? So you'd like to say, so you can do a lot of things, you can make a change, right?
Yes
so
po, Mr. Chairman.
This position is a political position, depending on the whim and caprice of whoever is in power, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's
Agree.
it's being appointed po by the President po.
So in other words, walang pag-asa yung GTV4, yung GTV, no? GTV, PTV4, dahil wala talagang long-term plans na may implement. Would that be correct? Kaya dami niyang problema sa contractors. Hindi niyo ma-convince yung DBM, hindi niyo ma-convince yung Senado, yung Kongreso, na bigyan kayo ng I would like to put an end to that. I mean, gusto ko maging BBC yan eh. Diba? Or Australian Broadcasting Service. Dapat talaga mahaba. At tatanggalin lang kung palpak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you 100%. That's why po.
This is a flaw that the administration of President Duterte and President Aquino has not served. Yung masasabihin mo sa akin?
Hindi po, Mr. Chairman. I can't speak for the ones before me, but admittedly,
President Aquino, katagal yung mga dapat meron kayo dyan eh. Alam nyo, there's something to be said about special organizations like yours na tatagal talaga dahil kung magaling, dapat hindi tinatanggal kaya magpalit ng administrasyon. Di ba? At tuloy, hindi nabibiktima sa mga tao ninyo, correct? The very fact that you have a lot of people na contractual shows na there is no long-term planning. Would you say that's correct? My fraternity brother, the Undersecretary Ablan, who is the son of an eminent fraternity brother also, Roquito Ablan, and whose whose father was a hero in World War II. Would that be correct, sir?
That would be a correct assessment, Mr. Chairman. The number of COS reflects on the poor planning of the agency.
Just as the Andanars are of good stock. History yan, ha? So would you say that you should be able to correct that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will correct this anomaly, Mr. Chairman.
Kay the Secretary Andanar and Secretary Ablan to prepare a recommendation to this representation so I can raise that when I appear before the eminent senators of the Republic of the Philippines to sponsor the budget. Would you say that would be welcomed by the rank and file of the people in your department, Secretary Andanar?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are absolutely correct. That is the reason why we have fought for the People's Broadcasting Corporation since 2016. I understand it was then Senator Lauren Legarda who authored that in the Senate, and the Congressman Alfred Vargas in Congress. And now we have resubmitted that bill, Mr. Chairman, so that we could really strengthen the People's Television Network through this new law, this new charter that would enable us to become a BBC or a Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or perhaps an Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. I'm glad you agree. But would you say that it's not only true for PDB4? I think I can see that from where I sit. There is no long-term program for the government, and any government without that long-term program of developing a professional civil service of professional people who care about their country, that will come out with the best bureaus in our country and not be subjected to political harassment or political change. That they must really be protected by what we call a system of meritocracy. Would you agree with that?
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, 100%, completely.
Therefore, I'm sure I'll be joined by my eminent friend from the Sigma Rho fraternity. That both of us, I'm sure, and Senate President Soto would like to stand foursquare on arrangements where the meritorious remain in government. Would that be correct, sir? Would you agree with us? Do you think that we're men of goodwill and good principles? In other words, a Filipino should think of it that way, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I'm putting you on the record because I want to be sure that I'm not going to be bullied by your president if I say something like that. Di ba? If you're good, you should stay. If you're bad, you should be kicked out, and there should be consequences when you're kicked out.
Yes,
Correct?
Mr. Chairman. The classic example would be the story that the Senate President has reminded the public about the reporter who allegedly committed suicide and allegedly caused by a regular employee, and another case, the case B, which is an employee who was also a COS and had tremendous lapses. So you have one regular and a casual or a COS having serious lapses, and we should really address this, Mr. Chairman.
See, I don't want it to let it pass. Ganun tayo, we let it pass. I'm sure the Senate President doesn't want to let it pass. Senator Drilon doesn't want to let it pass. And that is why we stand with the Senate President and the Senate to make sure that this does not only happen with the blue ribbon. I'm standing on my soapbox, quite frankly, right now. You know, there's a soapbox in Hyde Park in London, right, where people can speak up, and that's a tradition, and perorate against the government, right, and he will not be held liable. And by the way, you're standing before history here. The Soto law is a very famous law that protects, against gag orders. Would that be correct, Mr. President, sir? I mean, that's the Soto law, and I suggest you take a look at that law because that speaks volumes for our history. Okay, thank you very much, Senator Dillon. You have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator Gordon, Mr. Chairman. Just as a preliminary remark, I can notice that Opsilonians are really after impartiality. They only hire competent people. The same with the Sigma Rho. I do not know about the other fraternity. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, having said that, just a quick review of the manpower complement of PCOO, Mr. Senate President. Is it correct that right now in the PCOO proper, you have only 54 plantilla positions? That's what your report indicates. Can you confirm that? 54 plantilla positions in the PCOO proper? Your report says plantilla permanent, 2021, 54. Tama po ba? Can you reconfirm that for the record?
Mr. Chairman, may I defer to Undersecretary Ablan for the response?
What batch are you in the Opsilon, Mr. Ablan?
Mr. Chairman, good morning. I am batch 2000, Mr. Chairman.
2007? But anyway, just do by impression of your report is that you have 54 plantilla positions in 2021. I am trying to confirm that on the record.
Mr. Chairman, here based as of 2021, our plantilla permanent is 53.
Okay, just a matter of one, but more or less, yeah, I'm reading from your report, 54 or 53, okay, whatever it is. So, but you have also a co-terminus of 83 positions. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Now, so you have 83 co-terminus positions in 2021. How many were there in 2016 at the start of this administration? How many co-terminus?
Based on our report, Mr. Chair, for 2016, we had 8 co-terminus.
You have 8 co-terminus in 2016. Now you have 83, or a 1,000% increase. That's what the record says. Again, I repeat, in 2016, you had only 8, walong co-terminus. Ngayon, 83, a 1,000% increase. Why?
Mr. Chairman, the co-terminus indicated in our report reflect our immediate support staff for officials of the PCOO. These are under the Office of the Secretary, the Undersecretaries, and Assistant Secretaries. So these are the support staff of these officials, Mr. Chair. And that is why we have 83.
Are you
That is
saying
correct.
that in 2015, PCOO did not have sufficient support staff because they had only 8, and you doubled it 1,000 times? Today, it's 83? That's unusual.
Mr. Chairman, at that time, the officials did not request for immediate support staff from the DBM. We requested.
Okay, but why is there a sudden need to multiply it 1,000 times from 8 to 83? At the start of this administration, of the Duterte administration, you had only 8. Today, you have 83. Bakit naman ganun? That's 1,000 times more. What is so unusual for the last 6 years that you had to increase your co-terminus positions 1,000 times?
Mr. Chairman, other than immediate support staff, the 83 also reflect the 35 co-terminus staff of the Freedom of Information Project Management Office, which we hope will be converted to regular plantilla, Mr. Chair. So this is a newly created project management office of the PCOO through the efforts of the DBM, Mr. Chairman.
Well, just for the record, we are not convinced about the validity.
Mr. Chairman, may I be given...
Yes, to the other Obsolonian, Secretary Andarar.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that it could be explained because during the time of the Aquino administration under Pinoy, the PCOO was divided into 2. There was the PCDSPO, or the Presidential Strategic Communications Office, led by, if I'm not mistaken, Undersecretary Manolo Quezon. And then the PCOO was led by Secretary Sani Coloma. And under the presidency of President Duterte, we had to merge both offices.
Okay. Yeah. Now, in 2021, you had 290 COST. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. We have 290 contract of service as of 2021.
Yes, contract of services. Hindi COS, hindi COST.
COS po, Mr. Chairman.
Because akala ko, contract of services for trolls. Sige, let's put that aside first. But you had 290 contract for services. In 2016, is it correct that your records show you had only 120 contract of services?
Mr. Chairman, based on our records in 2016, the PCO had 200 contracts of service.
What you have reported here, I'm looking at it right now. Contract of service, 2016, 120. In 2017, 239. 239. In 2018, 200. 2019, 218. In 2020, 307. This is your own report. In 2021, it went down to 290. This I'm reading from your report. I do not have knowledge of this unless, except that you provided it to us.
Mr. Chairman, we did submit a report on the PCO proper manpower. We are looking into the difference in numbers, but the records that I have for contracts of service for 2016, Mr. Chairman, is 200. For 2017, it's 239. For 2018, it's 200. For 2019, it's 221. For 2020, Mr. Chairman, it was 326. And for 2021, it's 290, Mr. Chair. We apologize if the document that the senator received was a different number, but the numbers I just mentioned, Mr. Chair, is the correct numbers.
I hope that between now and the time your brad sponsors this on the floor, the numbers will not change again.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will make sure that the numbers are correct.
So what is the final number for contract of service or what I call COST for 2021?
For 2021, Mr. Chair, for the committee's record, we have 290 under contracts of service.
200? 290?
290, I confirm that, Mr. Chairman, 290.
All right. 290, and I was looking at it from 2016, this increased by 200, almost 250%. Why?
Mr. Chairman, we needed to hire additional personnel contracts of service to complement our media and content production unit, Mr. Chairman, to address the different projects of the other agencies for the agency, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. In 5 years' time, you have increased it by 200 and almost 250%. Kahit po si Alikabok, hindi papayag dyan kung buhay ngayon si Alikabok. You know who Alikabok is?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my father po.
Yes, your father. Kilala ni Senator Gordon yan, si Alikabok. Anyway, how do you explain the fact that you increased your contract of services by about 250%, a little less? Anyway, so that is on record now. In 2016, at the start of this administration, there was no item for personnel hired under downloaded funds. Your report shows 0. In 2021, downloaded funds 36. What are these? These are personnel hired because of the funds transferred to you by other agencies?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Downloaded funds mean these are funds coming from agencies who sought the assistance of the PCOO. And in order for us to deliver the media and communications requirements, we hired contracts of service with the funds that we receive from these agencies.
What's that practice?
agencies.
Why was that practice not present in 2006? There were no contract of service employees hired under the heading downloaded funds. Suddenly, you have 36 today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For context, for the senator, the chairman, and for the rest of the members of the committee, the Presidential Communications Operations Office is a relatively new department level office. It was consolidated by Executive Order Number 4, Series of 2010, by then President Benigno Aquino Jr. And prior to that, Mr. Chairman, the PCOO was known as the Office of the Press Secretary. It was only in 2010 that the PCOO started converting itself into a media and communications organization. And when the Secretary Martin Andanar, assumed the position in 2016, we expanded the creative media and information group of the PCOO, Mr. Chair. That explains why from 2016 all the way up to 2021, we've had downloaded funds because the secretary has converted PCO to what it is supposed to be, Mr. Chairman, which is the communications arm of the president. For added context, Mr. Chair, we do not have videographers, graphic artists, editors, items in the PCO plantilla. What we have, Mr. Chair, are just 4 positions for public information officers and 4 positions for information officers. Generally, Mr. Chair, these items perform the function of media relations. But since 2010 up to 2016, Mr. Chairman, PCO has embraced the duty and obligation to provide communications, media, and other information needs of the executive branch, and hence we have converted into a media office, Mr. Chair, not just a public relations or media relations office, Mr. Chairman. That is the reason.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I do not subscribe to the view of Undersecretary Ablan that just because you were elevated to a department that justified the hiring of so many people, particularly when they are only hired on under a contract of services agreements. I do not subscribe to that view. That to me, that's a way of going around the imposed manpower limits by the DBM, and this practice must have to stop. So, question: how many more contract of services do you intend to hire under your 2022 budget? First question, do you intend to maintain all of these COS in 2022?
No, Mr. Chair. Well, we have all intentions to reduce the number of contract of service personnel of the PCO proper.
You intend to reduce by how many? By 1, 2, 3? How many?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Mr. Chairman, at the very least, we aim to reduce the number of 88 contract of service of the PCO proper by 22 items, Mr. Chair. We have 5 items under the budget division, 5 items in the accounting division, 6 items in our IT division, and 6 under our legal division. So at the very least, Mr. Chairman, we informed the Senate that we intend to lower this number of contract of service by 22 personnel, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The worst from the record is that of PTV. PTV contract of service. In 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, Ma'am De Castro, you had 214 contract of service. In 2021, you had 534 contract of service. First question, do you confirm this? This is the report we received from PCO.
Yes, I confirm, Mr. Chairman.
You confirm, okay. In other words, you confirm that from 2016, from a contract of service of 214, you increased it this year to 534, or a 250% increase. You confirm that, ma'am. That's what the record shows.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Now, do you intend to carry this? Does your budget for 2022 carry the same number of a bloated COS plantilla of 534 from only 214 in 2016, or already a 250% increase? In other words, how many COS do you intend to maintain next year? And is there a reduction, or is there an increase in your budget for personnel?
Mr. Chairman, yung aming 534 COS Mr. Chair. And in terms of the budget po, kung ano lang po yung inallot sa amin ng DBM, which is 104 million pesos, yun lang din po ang gagastusin namin for 2022, Mr. Chair, for the COS.
Can you repeat your answer, please? I didn't fully understand it. I'm sorry, Mr. Castro.
Yeah, yes po, Mr. Chair. Yung aming COS, the number of COS that we have for this year na 534, sila pa rin po talaga until next year, 2022 po. And yung pasweldo po sa mga COS ay galing po sa MOOE na po ng PTV.
Yeah. Why do you need 534 next year? I noticed, for example, that that number, I'm looking at it, PTV4. Yeah. That number jumped from 214 in 2016. Last year it was 534, 524 in 2020, in 2021, 254. And let me be candid with you, Mr. Castro. You know, the Senate President pointed out certain shortcomings in your personnel policies. But here, you intend to maintain a bloated 534 manpower under contract of service. Now, are you aware of the Joint Resolution number 1? I'm sorry, Joint Circular number 1, series of 2015, issued by the Civil Service Commission, by the DBM and the COA, insofar as the rules on the procurement of services via job orders and contract of service? Are you aware of that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
You're aware of that. And under that circular, when can a COS personnel be hired? Under what circumstances?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, the COS will be hired if they have technical skills po.
What? I am asking you whether you are familiar with the grounds under which a COS can be hired under the Joint Circular number 1, issued jointly by the Civil Service Commission, by the DBN, and by COA. Under what circumstances can you hire somebody under a contract of service? There are specific grounds there. Are you familiar with this?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I have a copy of the joint COA DBM circular. Mr. Chair, may I take up the cudgels of our GM? It is listed in limitation 7.1, Mr. Chair. May I read for the benefit of the committee?
I'm asking these questions from the general manager of PTV because it is that agency hiring the contract of service. Very specific. And I'm just looking at the report of PTV. And these figures are not denied. And that is why I'm asking, since the PTV is the one hiring all of this, is the lady, Mr. Castro, familiar with the grounds under which a contract for service is allowed under the joint circular of the Civil Service Commission, of the Department of Budget and Management, and the COA? This is a joint circular dated a series of 2017, 4 years ago. And since 2017, if you look at the record of PTV, it increased its budget or its personnel from 214 in 2016 up to 534 or 534 today, or a 250% increase. It seems that is in total disregard of that joint circular. So that's why I'm asking the PTB4 general manager if she's aware of this joint circular series of the COA, of the Civil Service, of the DBM series of 2017 for the hiring of COS personnel.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. Personally, I am not aware of it, and even my team here in PTV, they are not aware of it.
They are not aware of it. That's why you just keep on hiring COS personnel in total disregard of this circular.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, the reason why we needed to hire more COS is because we are not allowed to hire under our plantilla as of the moment because nagkaroon nga po ng gridlock po, Mr. Chairman.
I'm, with all due respect, Ms. De Castro, precisely this circular was issued because the bureaucracy can invent 1,000 reasons why they need additional personnel. That is why this circular was issued as a limitation. And now you're saying that whether or not you agree is, I think, beside the point. What is in point is that there is a circular which governs the hiring of the contract of service. I'm sorry, Mr. Castro, you do not know what this is, so you just went on a happily hiring people right and left for contract of services. Not only did you not reduce, but you increased it 250 times, 250%. You totally disregarded this circular. All right. I'll ask you so may I have your comment? You do not know this, and therefore you just went on hiring in total disregard. Now, given this, how do you? Okay, first, what are the special projects being implemented by PCOO, which would, or PTB4, which would justify the increase of 250% from 2016 to today? In other words, you hired 320 more in the last 4 years as contract personnel. What are under that circular that I cited to you, Madam De Castro? It provides that the hiring of the COS personnel are only allowed if, number one, there are special projects being implemented. What are the special projects that you have implemented which would justify the hiring of 320 more?
Mr. Chairman, to answer that, we needed to hire more people for our operations. As we all know po, yes po, Mr. Chairman,
Obviously, for your operation is not a special project. In other words, you are justifying this hiring as part of your operation, but the rules do not allow that. It only allows special projects being implemented. Rightfully, because they are called contract of service. Rightfully, they are for specific projects because they are not in the regular course. You have enough. You have 50. You have 59 permanent plantilla positions, and the DBM has determined that that is the plantilla position needed for the operation of PTB4. Your opinion to the contrary notwithstanding. So the first question is, what are the special projects being implemented by the PCOO which would justify the hiring of 320 more from 2016 to today? That is from 214 in 2016 to 534 today, or an increase of 250%. Obviously, none that you can cite. Ms. De Castro, you cannot cite any special project.
Mr. Chairman, according to our legal, the PT&I charter is allowed to hire talents po. We hire our talents under the COS contract.
I am not talking about, you want to debate in law, on the point of law, or I am just asking a specific question and asking how you satisfied the standard of hiring people under a COS, because the DBM says, the CSC says, the COA says there must be a special project being implemented.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I ask my legal to answer po properly?
This is not a legal issue. This is a policy issue. I'm asking for what are the special projects? And that is not a legal issue.
So, Mr. Chairman, from what I can remember, one of the projects po that needed hiring of COS would be the Mindanao Media Hub, which opened this year, February 2021. And then there were some other projects po in the past that needed special coverages din po. And that's why they also hired po additional COS, Mr. Chairman.
Mindanao Media Hub. If I'm not, is this a special project or part of your operation?
And honestly, sir, it was part of the operations po, Mr. Chairman. But at the same time po, if we do not hire or we do not add more COS, magkakaroon po kami ng problema sa aming operations, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, but if that is so, then the DBM should have allowed you more plantilla positions. Why did they not allow you more permanent positions? Because it is part of your operation, insofar as that Mindanao Media Hub is concerned. Bakit ganon? I hope you can answer the questions, because these are the questions I will raise to the chairman of your committee when he presents your budget to the floor. And unless you can give us specific or justifiable answers, I don't think the Senate will agree to a recommendation to maintain this budget at this level.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. from what my team has been telling me, the problem with the COS has long been a problem talaga of PTV. It's because nga of the TO problems and all that. In terms of special projects po, sir, may mga times lang but very few wherein we need. But in terms of hiring of COS, it's really for the operations po, Mr. Chair.
So you really cannot justify on the basis of the facts. You cannot. There is really no justification for the 534 COS personnel that you intend to continue in 2022.
Mr. Chairman, hindi po sa ganun, Mr. Chairman. We need those COS para we can continue nga po with our operations.
Well, but unfortunately, Ms. De Castro, I'm sorry to tell you, the DBM is not in agreement with you. Because if the DBM is in agreement with your position, they should have added to your permanent plantilla. And so that is not a matter, that is, in other words, the executive branch itself has imposed limitations. Not us in Congress. It is the DBM which imposed this limitation. And you are expecting us to violate these limitations imposed by the DBM. I don't think that's proper.
Mr. Chairman, we will be submitting on behalf of the PTNI the list of special projects. After this hearing, Mr. Chair, I will reach out to them, Mr. Chairman. So,
thank you, Undersecretary Ablan. I hope that you had requested that you be recognized first before talking because I have the floor. Okay? So, tama po yan, hindi po ba? I am being very courteous to you people. I'm just asking questions which may be difficult to answer, but these are questions that must be asked, you know. Now, so you are using COS, contract of services agreements, in order to fund what otherwise are regular functions, which should be made part of the plantilla, permanent plantilla. And the fact that no regular plantilla is allowed by the DBM only indicates that they do not believe that a contract of service is valid. In any case, just talking about that contract of service, do you really have contracts of service signed? Or you just hire them as a COS? Do you have contracts of services signed? Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, for PTV po, we have po contracts talaga signed by the COSs as well as the submission of a daily time record and accomplishment reports, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you quite well.
Yes.
Contract of services? You
Yes
have
po.
signed agreements?
We have contracts of services po for it, and at the same time, we also have daily time records and we also have accomplishment reports. So tatlo po yun, Mr. Chairman, contract signed, daily time records, and accomplishment reports, Mr. Chairman.
Have you submitted this to us or not?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It was submitted through the PCOO, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, it was submitted to the PCOO. Yes. So you're saying that you have an agreement signed with these people, a contract for the engagement of their services, containing the terms of the engagement, including daily service reports. You have submitted this to the PCOO?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Aside po from the PCOO, because this was asked for last time during our hearing, we submitted all of the papers needed, all the documents to the PCO, and I believe USEC Chris Ablan's office submitted it to the Senate.
I do not know, but my report is that we do not have copies of this contract of services that you are mentioning. Have you submitted this, Undersecretary Ablan?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to apologize for intervening a while ago without asking to be recognized. Mr. Chair, what we submitted was what was requested from the office, not the contracts of service, but the
Yes.
details on the budget, the names, the addresses, the job description, the period. Those were submitted, Mr. Chairman, not the contracts themselves.
Not the contract itself.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. We did not submit
Contracts existing?
of service. We submitted the
Are there actually agreements signed to support this contract of service? Or are they just vouchers or whatever, or appointments or what? What document has been signed in order that a contract of service relationship is established?
Mr. Chairman, at the PCOO, we do have a actual contracts of service. These contracts of service signed these documents, and they are signed by me or the secretary, Mr. Chairman.
Good. What about in the PTV?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have po contracts with our COS po, and all of them po were signed po. Not only just the COS, but also the supervisors po, and by yours truly po.
Thank you very much, Ms. De Castro. So I would expect Undersecretary Ablan to submit this to the committee as soon as possible.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will gather the contracts, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, while you are offline, the PTB4 admitted that in complete disregard of Joint Circular Number 1 series of 2017 signed by Civil Service, by the DBM and the COA, they just had these COS contracts signed. Now, the said circular also allowed, so I take that back. How many personnel were hired under the justification that there are special projects which must be assisted or manned by the 320 additional personnel? Ano po ito? Ano ito mga special projects na ito? Wala. Mr. Chairman, I have a pending question.
The witness, the resource person must answer.
Have they? I'm sorry, but it must have been off. I didn't hear it, sir. I was asking what are the special projects which justified contract of service hiring?
That Secretary Ablan or Secretary Andanar or Kat De Castro must answer.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I thought the question was addressed to GM Kat De Castro. I am ready with...
It was addressed to PTB4 General Manager, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have an answer, Ms. De Castro?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the COS we hire are performing functions that the regular plantilla employees cannot anymore perform because we have limited regular employees already.
Yeah, so that is the fault of the DBM, not this Congress. We're just following the plantilla position being submitted to us by Congress. Now, let me also point out to something. I have a certification here from you, which reads, I, the undersigned Network General Manager of People's Television Network, Inc., hereby certify that these are the true and exact copies of accomplishment reports and daily time records. There is no contract of service submitted to us. There are no signed agreements submitted to us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will definitely send na lang po all the contacts po of our COS to the committee.
All right. Okay, now, we'll await that. The other ground for hiring of COS personnel under that contract, under that circular that I cited, are foreign assisted projects. Are there foreign assisted projects which would justify the hiring of COS personnel?
Mr. Chairman, from PTV's end, none po. Nothing foreign assisted.
None, and therefore you cannot again justify the COS agreements. Now, the COS, under that circular, the hiring of the COS personnel are allowed only if there are projects duly approved with a duly approved memorandum of agreement. I assume this is particularly true in what you call as downloaded funds. Mayroong item dito, downloaded funds. Are there MOAs signed by the agency where they download funds to you? On what services will be done by PTB4?
Mr. Chairman, according to my team behind me, there was nothing downloaded to PTV po.
There was none. So on what basis did you hire these people if there is no MOA? Because MOA coming from the order from the requesting agency, because you have you have no downloaded funds. I take that back because the downloaded funds are with the PCOO proper. And so, Mr. Ablan, are these downloaded funds covered by memorandum of agreements?
Mr. Chairman, yes, Mr. Chairman, these downloaded funds are covered by duly signed memorandum of agreements, also notarized, Mr. Chairman.
Who can you give me as a general idea of which agencies have downloaded funds to PTV4? Or I'm sorry, to PCOO proper?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have downloaded funds from the Philippine Statistics Authority. We also have downloaded funds from the Department of Energy. We also have downloaded funds from the National Housing Authority, Mr. Chairman, NHA.
So these are additional budgets that you get, in effect. These are budgets transferred to your agency.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have copies of these memorandum of agreements?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have copies.
Yes, can you submit this to us? I want to know what are the funds downloaded to you and how much?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will submit to the committee.
Please. Now, just a few more questions. I'm sorry I have to ask these detailed questions. When you hire this personnel under the contract of service, you are asserting that the duties and responsibilities of the current personnel complement has no capacity of performing. That's again required. Is that a fact that can be justified, Ms. De Castro? I will repeat, under the joint circular, you can hire COS personnel if there are duties and responsibilities that the current personnel complement would not have the capacity or the talent of performing. Is that a fact? In other words, none of your personnel would be able to hire to perform the task that you have contracted under the contract of services system?
Mr. Chairman, it's just that, as I've mentioned earlier na rin po kay Senate President, because we can no longer hire additional personnel, we've already reached our maximum number in terms of, making sure that the operations po would proceed. Because as of the moment, ilan lamang po talaga ang permanent employees po namin dahil nga po hindi in-approve po yung TO, nagkaroon nga po ng gridlock. That's why we are doing a reorganization po.
Nagkaroon ng deadlock between you and DBM, nagkaroon ng deadlock, kaya ang ginagawa nyo, to go around this deadlock, you hire contract of services personnel in order to go around the prohibition of DBM, which is the agency in charge of the staffing pattern. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, once again, I'd like to reiterate that we cannot hire because our problems with our reorganization. In 2016, the management then offered early retirement options to the regular employees. A number of employees availed of it, but we were not allowed to fill those positions under the GCG approved TO. Until the TOQSR approved by CSC, we cannot hire regular employees. That's why it's for the
That is
TO.
a limitation imposed by the agencies that have responsibility insofar as staffing pattern is concerned, and they have made a ruling, and you're trying to go around that by entering into all of this contract of services, which you say are being performed, which services are being performed for the execution of regular functions, not of special projects. Now, in 2017, PCOO issued Department Order number 13, series of 2017, creating the Social Media Office, or SMO, headed by an Assistant Secretary for Social Media. Mr. Ablan, can you put on record what are the functions of the Social Media Office, or SMO? And that's number one. Number two, can you just create an office through a department order?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I confirm. We created such an office back in 2017. Let me right now retrieve a copy of the order, Mr. Chair, so that I can properly address the senator.
So, okay, so go ahead. Yes, is there? I have a question that I raised. What are the functions of this civils of this office? Can you create an office through a department order? As far as I know, you create an office by because of a law. I do not know that a department order is enough to create an office?
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the creation of this office is just internal to the PCOO, insofar as it designates an assistant secretary to lead the social media office. Mr. Chair, just to update the senator, the good senator, Mr. Chair, the office has already been superseded or replaced by the office of the Undersecretary for New Media. The said assistant secretary no longer is part of the Presidential Communications Operations Office, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay. So I go back to my question. Can a simple department order create an office legally? Just a department order, huh? And you're saying this is internal to PCOO. I'm sorry, sir, but creation of an office is never internal. That's a use of public funds. You know, you are creating positions. You are creating a liability on the part of the government to provide budgets for this. So I go back to my question. Is the creation of an office legally feasible under a department order? Point number two, you're saying that you have now elevated this into the office of undersecretary. Makes your situation worse, because the undersecretary positions are created under the law and by virtue of the administrative code. You cannot issue a department order to create a position of undersecretary of an office of social media office headed by an assistant secretary for social media. Now you're saying this has been abolished because it is now headed by an youth undersecretary. Mr. Ablan, you can consult any lawyer, but I don't think you can find authority to support your proposition that a department order can create an office. It is even doubtful if the president can create an office through an executive order. But for you to assert that you're creating an office because of department order is even worse. You are arrogating to yourself a function and a power reserved to Congress. And we have not delegated that power to you. How do you legally justify the creation of an office under a department order? And you made it worse by elevating now the head of that office as an undersecretary, not just an assistant secretary.
Mr. Chairman, again, I already have a copy of the department order. It's DO number 13 series of 2017.
Yes, I have that also. The department order number 13 series of 2017, creating the social media office or SMO, headed by an assistant secretary for social media. The question I raise is, can you create a public office by virtue under a department order issued only by the secretary, not created by law? Is the department secretary authorized by law to create an office under the PCOO? Mr. Undersecretary, Secretary Ablan, I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with your statement that this is internal to the PCOO. Use of public funds can never be internal to a department.
Mr. Chair, we maintain that the department order is in order, Mr. Chair, that the secretary could create an ad hoc office, in this case, a social media office, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Can you submit to the committee the legal justification which would empower a secretary to create an office through a department order? Because I have been a lawyer for 50 years. I have been involved in public law for the last 3 decades, or yeah. But I am not aware that a department secretary can create an office, appoint personnel by virtue of that creation, by virtue of a department order, and you have made it worse by elevating the assistant secretary, the head from an assistant secretary to an undersecretary. Anyway, if Senator Gordon will present your budget, I will intend to raise this when the time comes.
Mr. Chairman, we will submit our position paper, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please. Now, we note that the qualifications, educational qualifications of those hired under contract of service has nothing to do with their positions, requirements of their position. In fact, there is an item, media consultant. What does this mean? It is in, yeah. What is a media consultant of the PCO? What are the functions of a media consultant?
Mr. Chairman, we have an example of the functions and responsibilities of a media consultant. Under our submission, a media consultant assists the secretary in various public relations functions, manages and maintains the positive reputation of the PCO to the media community, as well as to promote the best interests of the agency through media relations, and performs other functions that may be assigned from time to time by the secretary. That is an example of the functions and responsibilities of a media consultant, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yes, that is so stated in your submissions. But would the function of the media consultant include the promotion and projection of a public official as found in the Facebook of the media consultant?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I fully understood the query of
There
Senator
is a media consultant that PTV that you hired. Okay? The Facebook of that media consultant states all of the activities of a particular public official. Nothing to do with maintaining the positive reputation of the PCOO to the media community. Nothing to do with that. That particular media consultant was promoting a particular official. Is that a valid way of spending public funds? Have you ever verified this? Why this is happening? Makikita mo naman eh. In other words, what I'm doing is to cite to you instances where we believe that public funds are being used for partisan politics.
And other than for which the law intended. At the very least.
And that is why, Mr. Chairman, I have gone in the past 30 minutes on some detail on the way the PCOO has been administering the budget, has been providing funds because of instances such as this. When we find a media consultant, we cannot see what his work is, but if you look at her or the Facebook, it is all to promote a particular public servant. Is that the function of a media consultant you have hired?
Mr. Chairman, no, the consultant, Mr. Chair, the contract of service has to follow the functions and responsibilities as contained in the contract of service. We will conduct an investigation, Mr. Chair, insofar as the private or personal Facebook page. We will look into it, Mr. Chairman, whether or not it breaches over the person's freedom of speech or if it falls within the parameters set by the contract, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm just pointing this out to show the tendencies that your office are or not the tendencies, that the activities that your particular officials are undertaking, and this is a public office, not a political organization. In now, have you ever conducted a special project to make our people confident on the vaccination program of the government?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We do have a program on the vaccination. I do believe Director General Ramon Coloping III of the Philippine Information Agency was the official designated by the Secretary to oversee at least the representation of the PCOO in the communications for the vaccination program.
Is it not a fact that several items in the budget for programs and activities in the 2020 budget were discontinued for non-use, and the same consolidated into budget to address government's or to fund government's response to COVID-19?
Mr. Chairman, we do had savings in 2020 that reverted back to the Treasury to support the COVID response, Mr. Chair.
All right. Yes, well, there are a number of issues. Oh, I will not delay your budget any further. Just for the record, there are a number of issues pending where you will submit your written responses to the questions. Just for the record, I intend to raise these questions on the floor when the chair would present your budget, but at this stage, Mr. Chairman, I would already put ahead and put of record that I will propose cuts in the budget of this PCOO because a number of activities cannot be justified, one, or two, it can be deferred because we have no funds for COVID-19. And some of the activities and projects in the budget are really something that we that can be deferred, and the amounts can be used either for the ayuda or better response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will submit my proposed cuts in the budget of the PCOO, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and we will ask further questions when the final report of the good committee would indicate how this budget is going to be considered by the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. President, I just want to propound a question on the floor. Can be answered by Senator Duron if he wishes to. Don't you think, good Senator, that what these gentlemen are doing skirts on the possible issue of malversation of public funds, spending money for positions that were not created and therefore money for which it was not intended?
I am not prepared, in the absence of a further study, I am not prepared to take that position, Mr. Chairman. What is clear is that these offices were created without authority of law and only by the authority of the secretary. That's all that I'm saying at this point. I am not prepared to go further than that, pending a further study of the budget law and the legality of creating an office through a department order. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. I just want to admonish the officials of the PCOO that this skirts is a very difficult issues, and I really am finding it harder and harder to try and justify it unless they will be cut off, because to my mind, this really skirts the boundaries of what is provided for under the criminal law, which application of public funds or property under the administration of a particular department or individual in the government, which is supposed to be used for public use, other than for which such fund or property was appropriated by law or ordinance. And there are penal provisions for that. I just want to warn you guys that this is a very, very thin ice that we're skating on, especially if you look at all the matters on limitations of the use of money for contractual services. It is very, very clearly delineated that they can only be used. Are you aware of that, Secretary Blan, Secretary Andanar, that under COSs, and you have a lot, about 1,479 of them, can only be done by the agency. In other words, and shall be limited to consultants, learning service providers, and or technical experts to undertake special project or jobs within a specific period. Now, as you have stated here, some of these jobs have gone on to about 15 years, 16 years, several decades. It doesn't justify the continuous operation of such funds for such purposes. Would you agree, Secretary Ablan? You are a lawyer, and there is a specific time limit for these consultants, or for that matter, these positions are so-called experts.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I 100% agree with the chairman. And that is why when we assumed the post of administration and finance this year, we directed the opening of these items so that our contracts of service can be given a shot to be regularized. We are very happy that many of them that were contracts of service for more than 10 years have been regularized, Mr. Chairman. So yes,
that's
we
not my
identify that,
question.
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, that is not my question. And I find it difficult to ask these questions, not to bring you down or any of you down. But you should watch out for some of these limitations, because it can be a stretch, or it can be stretched towards difficult circumstances. It doesn't even have to be stretched, quite frankly. Or for that matter, first there's a specific period. Second, the people that you're hiring must be for technical purposes or of an expertise that is not available. For example, on the question of Senate President Soto earlier on, there was this matter of this lady, Miss Constantino, who was appointed as a COS, and yet she was made to supervise, exercise control or supervision over even regular and career employees. Would I be correct when I say that when I cite that under 7.4 of the limitations governing contract of service and job order workers in the government service?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the chairman is correct. 7.4 limits COS and JOs from not being designated to positions exercising control and supervision
And
over
had there
regular
not been
employees.
any brouhaha over what she did, it would not have been found out. And now that it has been found out, it is now out in the open. That's why I asked you a letter to explain what you're going to do about that, because that would help me justify the situation, wouldn't it? Or at least try to justify the situation. I'm trying to help you here. Not because
Yes,
you're
Mr.
my
Chairman.
brother, but a fraternity brother, because you're not going to get any help from me if you did an illegal act. Let me assure you that. The
Yes,
very
Mr. Chair.
it was found out
will
and the people
be submitting.
complained about what she was doing, exposed the department to such public scrutiny that can lead to disastrous consequences. Do you understand me, Director De Castro, General Manager De Castro?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just for the record po, Constantino is an administrative assistant po. But just the same, I can guarantee you po na lahat po ng mga OICs namin dito ngayon o yung mga topmost positions po for the divisions are now regular employees po. Tinigil na po namin yung practice na
I
COS
was
po ang
told that
mag-
Constantino was a COS earlier. We were told. Shall I refer to the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, she is a COS po.
So therefore, she should not have been supervising other employees under him. I lost you. I lost you there. I lost you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, she is an administrative assistant po. Assistant lang po siya.
But she's a COS nonetheless, right?
Yes po. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Let us not quibble, because it might get you into further trouble with me and trying to help.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
That be as and then under 7.3, COS and JO workers should not in any case be made to perform functions which are part of the job description of the agency's existing regular employees. Now, 1,479 employees, Secretary Andanar, I find it difficult to justify that they would not be performing regular inquiry employees. Or at the very least, you should have asked permission from the civil service that you could not find any, or that you should have fought for those positions to be opened by the DBM, because otherwise you would be in violation of law. Would that be correct, Secretary Andanar?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Early on, I wrote something down and trying to look for it I mean, you guys prepare the budget, right? Your people, and you prepare the budget for the department, correct? Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So you have every opportunity to appoint the right man with the right salary. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Would it be therefore under pressure from other people to appoint people who may not be the right people for the job, but who just want to occupy a position, for as silly as we can get these votes, one, or they can act as Senator Ridon often refers to them as trolls, and I tend to agree with that.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I hope you're
Mr.
I hope
Chairman.
you're telling us the right answer, because 1,479 is a stretch to me. It's very hard to justify that, especially when I look at all your PCOO proper has plantilla positions of 234, but you have COS personnel in the number of 330. That's a lot.
Mr. Chairman, may I please say something?
Who's speaking, please? Identify yourself.
Undersecretary Lorraine Badoy, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Undersecretary Badoy, yes. What
Hello,
is your
Mr.
position?
Chairman.
Your position is?
Undersecretary for External Affairs and New Media.
Is it your expertise to be able to answer that, or should it be Secretary?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, and maybe defend the PCOO, and
You mean
basically to
incapable of
clarify.
defending itself? I never said it was incapable. In fact, I'm
No,
giving
Mr.
you all kinds
Chairman.
of opportunities to defend yourself by way of a formal submission. Do you want to extend it? Because I might ask you other questions coming out from your lips.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll try my best. Just to give you some clarity siguro, Mr. Chairman.
The committee, not me.
Okay, the committee, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Kasi Mr. Chairman, I'm not a lawyer and I entered PCOO not at the very start, but layman's term lang, Mr. Chairman, asking for your indulgence, okay?
Okay.
The truth is, we've had to hire that kind of that number of personnel because the president ano lang talaga siya to make sure that operations would really continue. It's not to circumvent or like yung trolls again, because that there's no such thing as a troll farm for the PCOO, no such thing. And also Mr. Chairman,
Well, I think that has
the
already
truth
been
is-
stated earlier,
Yeah.
Erla, no? I mean, you're just repeating it and
No, can I
that's
just,
already been
Mr.
stated by I
Chairman?
think no less than the Secretary of the PCO said that. You have no troll farms, or even Secretary of Lana said that.
But
So you're
also,
just
Mr.
reiterating the defense.
Yeah, I'll say something new then. I'll say something new, Mr. Chairman, is that this president is a working president and that he's had to travel and go to places, and we've had to really follow him and cover him and bring his programs to the people. And from what I
Don't tell me
understand,
what I already know, please. I already know that. Every president has a staff. Every president has got to have a staff. Every president has got, but you have to do it in the right way. There are two ways of doing it, the right way and the wrong way. So try not to justify that. That's very thin ice. That's very thin ice. I'm not looking for fault here. I'm just citing to you the law, chapter, and verse, and you should stay within the law. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
You see, this is going to be brought before the whole Senate. And I already had a statement by Senator Dillon that he's going to ask these questions. How am I going to answer that? And that's why I asked you for a letter. Did I not?
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
In fact, I would even go as far as justifying every position. 1,479. Kind of difficult for me to answer for something that I'm not even aware because I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. All right?
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Thank
you for your
you.
loyalty to the department that you're president. I could have argued with you on that point, but I don't want to do that. There's
Thank you,
I'm
Mr. Chairman.
place for that. All right.
Mr.
It just so
Chairman,
happens that this is an election year, and there have been so much. There was even an item. Are you familiar with that, Secretary Antonar? You're a good man in media. We worked together in Channel 5. There was an article, I think, by Jessica Soho in another channel that says how troll farms are created. They have about 500 to 1,500 people, close to the number that you're looking at here, and they're paid anywhere from 14,000. Yeah, people paid 14,000 or even 40,000. Those numbers were made, and it made an impression on me. So whether or not you have troll farms, you cannot help the public from looking at that. And besides, you're snake bit from the very beginning. When Secretary Tadad spoke, for example, for the president in declaration of martial law, he was already categorized as a defender of the president, which is what you're supposed to do. But upon the other hand, the government allows you appropriations to defend the position of the government in an objective manner, in a BBC, Canadian broadcasting, or for that matter, Australian broadcasting way, which means that you get that credibility by allowing free discourse, free statement of fact by your own people, so that nobody commits suicide. All right. So to me, that is the justification for the Secretary de Castro's position. And I'm just, sinasabi ko lang sa inyo na dapat sundin nyo yung batas. At dahil maraming umaalingaw, dapat mapaliwanag natin yan. Dahil maraming kakandidato sa Senado eh. Secretary Pacquiao, si Senator Pacquiao, Senator Soto, no? Sila Senator Lacson, right? And who knows, it's going to come out of the woodwork. Now, it doesn't help, for example, when some of your people, Secretary Andanar, starts criticizing the Blue Ribbon. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to stoop down to the level of one of your people that even dares to criticize the Blue Ribbon. Because I can turn the tables and start investigating all of you people, but then you will say I'm retaliatory. I think you better investigate that on your own, because that guy seems to have overextended his intelligence to the point that he's going to embarrass and put the department into ignominy, into an ignominious position. You know, we also read the texts of some of your people, and that lessens your credibility. Are you aware of that, Secretary Andanar?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of the.
Well, you better ask Secretary Ramon Kualuping. I'm not going to justify him here. I can handle him in another forum. Ask him.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Tapang ninyo, nakaharap kayo dito, tapos i-criticize yung Blue Ribbon. We're free. We can be criticized. I'm okay. But don't use the government, Mr. Kualuping. Are you nodding your head? Like when I made a statement about Jackba, that's a statement of fact. Pati si Jackba, dinadala na ng Blue Ribbon. You mean to tell me, you're telling me what to do? Or are you so dumb? Jack Ma was removed by the Chinese government. And you have somebody here by the name of Mr. Michael Yang, who's been appointed economic advisor of the president, which is against the law as far as I'm concerned. Even dangerous to the national security of our people. But do not infer upon you intellectual capacities that are far, far short of your capability. I just referred you to your secretary for your proper handling, because when you're going to come here and ask for our support, you better make sure you're clean. I'm not sensitive to that. Normally, I would not react to that. I just want, how dare you? You think you're made of Teflon? Lahat may katapusan. Pati ako may katapusan. Lahat kayo may katapusan. Hindi porke nakatungtong kayo, malaki pa kayo sa kalabaw. That is the problem with people in government or in you. Kala nyo, pag nakapwesto kayo, you're full of power. You're drunk with power, then you start behaving like a pig. What is the pleasure of Senator Drilon? Shall we approve this budget with reservations, or subject to the explanations to be made by these gentlemen? We're really friends of mine. I'm proud to be their fraternity brother. Secretary Andanar is an Epsilonian, and I'm proud. That's we have principles. That's a Sigma Rho principles. We kid about it, but you know, when you cross the line, the fraternity stops. The fraternal ties stop. My own feeling right now is just say we give you a zero budget. I don't think you like that, right? So just follow the suggestion of the chairman and make sure you make an explanations in writing. Because it's going to be very difficult for me to justify. You know, they'll go about it with a fine-tooth comb. And out of respect for you, I presume that you're in good faith. Whenever a new government comes in, they put in, Lorelai, whenever a new government comes in, it's called the spoil system. You try to put in a lot of people into government. Utang na loob, sabi nga nila. But in this particular case, since we're approaching an election, baka umabot siya doon sa tinatawag nating trolls. And I call it a word to the wise is sufficient. Verbum sapientia satis. So magyayabang na naman ako sabihin ng mga troll ninyo. Naglati na naman Senator Gordon. Well, research it para hindi dumugo ang ilong ninyo. Thank you very much. I will await your explanation, after which I will talk with my peers and my colleagues whom I respect here in the Senate, and then make the decision, and I will suspend making any recommendation at the moment. Unless you want to have another hearing so that I can hear your formalities. What is your
Mr.
pleasure, Secretary Andrar?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
yes, so as not to burden the committee with so much of the deadlines, I have expressed the view earlier that submitting it to the discretion of the chairman, I no longer have questions, but we would request that the documents and studies that we requested be submitted on time so that when the chair presents the budget, whatever budget it is, to the plenary, these questions can be answered. And I am particularly concerned about the legality of creating the office of the social media office headed by an assistant secretary. Now it's an undersecretary.
New media office, you mean? I was looking for it. I did not find it in the recitation of new undersecretary.
Office. Creating the social media office.
Is it
That's
social media or new media?
that's Department Order number 13, a series of 2017, sir. That is not denied. They have created a social media office without, in my view, without any authority. The secretary cannot create an office. Even the president, it's it's debatable if he can create an office. We believe he cannot. But much less can the department secretary create a social media office under a department order. That is something that is worrisome to us, and we do hope that the person that the department can justify this, because as I have said on record that I intend to raise this when the committee report is made. I with my respectful submission to the chair that this should be looked into in more detail. Thank you very much, sir. I have no objection to the budget being submitted subject to these conditions.
Having said that, the chair, and we have a quorum here, the chair will agree to the observations made by and the recommendation made by the good minority floor leader. I just want to remind everybody here, the big guns were here today. The Senate President, who normally doesn't attend these things, and although he does, but not make serious comments that were made that had fatal consequences. And that's why you should tarry a little before you even react. And of course, the minority floor leader, who's had tremendous experience in the Senate. I'm humbled by these gentlemen because they are senior to me in terms of experience, and I bow to their experience. But certainly, I agree with the comments whether you can create an office by yourselves, or for that matter, even the president. That's debatable. That's why I've given you all the opportunities to make sure that you're able to explain that position. By the way, when you submit it to me, try to submit it as soon as, because we want to make sure that the budget will be approved with all that explanation. I'm sorry this has to go through this, and I'm sorry you have some people there who are jumping the reservation. When you enter the House of the Senate, you better be prepared to make sure that when you attack, you're not using government time when you attack. And I will not use government time to attack. You already know who the gentleman is. And I'm not retaliating with him. It's a free country. All right? Thank you very much. On that note, the budget of the, subject to those reservations, the budget of the PCO and its attached agencies are submitted to the plenary with the reservations aforestated, which I join and I associate with. The reservations of the minority floor leader and the reservations, I suppose, of the Senate President. If approved, pending submission of documentary request, the budget of the PCO and its attached agencies will be submitted to the plenary, subject to completion of the said submitted documents. So ordered. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you for your time. I'm sorry that it was quite inconvenient. This is part of the trappings of democracy, of making sure that the job of when someday one of you will be a senator or a congressman, I hope that you will realize that your duty is to make sure that you balance the powers in government. It's not a fight of personalities. its principles of democracy. You're seeing that happen in Germany right now. As Merkel goes, another comes in. I don't know if the Christian Democratic Organization candidate has already won. But then the people are the best balance later on, as you all know. The people will be the right balancer. Thank you all, and God bless you all. I respect all of you. Even those who criticize, I respect you and respect your rights. And try to be as good as you can to other people, and try to think that we are here, or you know, as a stewards, and we will all have to pass on as we go on. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.